This morning we're continuing in our sermon series in John chapter 12, entitled today's sermon, All Gave Some, and Some Gave All. We'll unpack a little more as we go, just exactly the meaning of that. But I'd like to start with just some celebrations here at the end of the year. You're welcome to clap during this if you want. All applause goes to Jesus ultimately, but I want to thank you because you were obedient to Jesus' call in your life. As of this week, there's still money that can come in by the end of the year, and so we'll still give 30% of what's coming in to missions. But this year, we were able to give close to a third of our budget, over 30%, to missional work outside of these 4 Calvary walls. We're thankful for that. Somewhere close to between 1 and 1.2 million by the end of the year, we'll give away to missions. So let's thank the Lord for that. That's something we prioritize, and we trust the Lord's favor. And I've had people from Tennessee Baptist Convention out of 3,100 churches in the convention. Our budget has grown as much proportionally as any church's budget in the state of Tennessee over the last 5 years. So thank you for being a part of that and making that happen. And it just goes to show when you give to the work of the Lord first, He blesses you. That's how it works. And a lot of churches, when things get tight, they cut their missions giving, and then guess what? The Lord doesn't bless them, and their budget keeps going down year after year. So we never want to cut back on our missions giving. And you blew it out of the water. Like 10% of our missions came in one Sunday, our missions offering. After the floods out in East Tennessee, North Carolina, we raised $118,074 for flood relief in one day. It was absolutely amazing. Not only that, are we giving money to rebuild a house, but there's a widow, 83 years old, out in East Tennessee, Jonesboro, Tennessee, I should say, whose house was wiped out by the flood. They were hoping they could do some things foundationally to make it work again, and decided that it was going to be too much. So we sent a team out there. We bulldozed that, and we've got the foundation in, and just really excited that it's there. And starting this week, we may even have somebody there doing some scouting today. Starting this week, we're sending teams. If you'd like to be a part of one of those teams in the month of January, we're just going to rebuild the whole house. So although it's all going to be walled in by the end of the month, we'll have the windows and everything in it. That's the plan. If that's something you'd like to be a part of, we'd love for you to be a part of that. Not only that, we built another church with Habitat for You, another house with Habitat for Humanity. I think this is the 5th house that we've built in the last 5 years. Next year, we're hoping to build 2. The Barfield campus will build 1. We'll be building 1. Lord willing, when we plant our 7th campus by the end of 2030, we'll be building 7 houses for Habitat for Humanity every single year from now on. Won't that be awesome here in Rutherford County? So we're excited about that. When it comes to helping the needy in our community, we're one of the largest contributors to the Journey Home. They had a groundbreaking this year, and something that we found out that really broke all of our hearts is part of the homeless problem in Murfreesboro, and you don't think about this, but about 40% of the homelessness in Rutherford County belongs to children. And a lot of them are living in hotels and in just, frankly, unsafe spaces. And so we partnered with the Journey Home to erect several, over a dozen rooms, maybe up to 2 dozen rooms. Billy Truesdale, are you here? He was here last service. He's not here now. But he works directly with them, and this way families have a place to go. For displaced families, they can go, and not only can they go to the Journey Home to stay for a period of time, but the Journey Home Ministries also help them get their feet under them so they can find housing in a long-term situation so those kids will never be at risk again. So it's an incredible ministry, and we're involved in several of these. Just a few weeks ago, we sent a team to the Dominican, and just excited to see how many kids came through there. I knew we had gotten Christmas presents for a lot of kids, but Doug Campbell, he was in first service. He told me they ended up giving, there he is standing in the back. We ended up giving gifts to how many kids in the Dominican? What's that? Over 700 kids. We provided Christmas for them in the Dominican Republic. So, wow. And if that's not enough, then we see here with the Christmas toys. These are what we were sending out to John Pittard Elementary, just right here a mile from our campus. We heard, not only were we taking care of the Dominican, but we heard that there were several kids on government assistance down there whose families would struggle being able to get them any gifts for Christmas. And a lot of times over on this side of Pitts Lane, we don't see the need that exists maybe on another part of town, and so it's out of sight, out of mind. But as we were informed by the counselor at Pittard and then from Oakland Middle, they had over 100 kids that probably weren't going to get Christmas presents this year. And so I just put it out there to the church, say, hey, here's a church mission thing that maybe we can get on and partner with a local school that we're wanting to do more and more with in 2025. And between Pittard Elementary and Oakland Middle, I think we supplied gifts for up to 150 kids right here in our backyard. So again, thank you for making that happen. It's absolutely incredible. Now, when we talk about stuff like this and we put stuff online, especially when I saw the thing that 118, everybody knew about the floods, the hurricane, and when I put the thing out there, it was just to celebrate what we're doing. But I saw a lot of comments either on your feeds or sometimes on mine, people from other churches or my background, and they'd make comments to the effect, again, well-meaning, I'm not putting them down, saying things like, this is exactly what the church was created to do. This is the most important, I saw a few of these, this is the most important thing that churches should be doing. Well, here's the thing. Whether it's building houses in East Tennessee, giving money to flood relief, providing places for children through a homeless shelter, providing presents for little boys and girls in the Dominican or right here in our own backyard, it is not the most important thing that we do down here. I realize that if you ask the world around us what's the importance of local church, they'll name the things we're having, and it is a good witness to let our light shine to the community. So what is exactly the most important thing about our existence as one church? Some would say, well, for the kids. You know, they always say you can raise a lot of money. It's easy to raise money. If whatever you're saying, you just add the end phrase, it's for the kids, right? Go around, knock on doors, we're getting money for this. It's for the kids. It's for the kids in the band. It's for the kids on the sports team. For the kids. A lot of times people will open up their wallets to that. So this is a picture from our Mother's Day Out program with Lionheart. And that's our part-time program down in this wing. And man, we are now fully staffed and ready for growth in the full-time Lionheart wing. And so if you know anybody that needs child care in 2025, we are ready to expand that ministry as well. But as important it is to provide good daycare at our development center, to give moms a day out down on this thing, for the children's ministry that Lee and Katie and Andy run here and teaching these kids little verses about our Savior. Not even that is the most important thing down here. And a lot of times parents will say, I want to join the church. I'm not putting you down like you probably well meaning if you say this, but the most important thing for me is that my children enjoy the church, because after all, it's for the kids. Christmas is for the kids. Church is for the kids. And so let's just remember, as important as the little ones are, it's not why we exist. Now, I say that as somebody who loves children's ministry, and my daughter is here with me today, and my son-in-law and sweet little baby James is back in the nursery. And it's been great to see him. He kind of stood up for 10 seconds on his own. Those are big deals when you're a grandpa, right? You got to see something like that. So it's been an exciting time to them. I support my daughter being in full-time ministry. It is great what she does. But what she does isn't what I did when I was her age. Because what I did was real ministry. What I did was student ministry. And we all know how important student ministry is, because, man, from 6th grade to 12th grade, that's when many of life's most determinative decisions are made. And if they're not a follower of Christ by the time they hit 18, it's only probably a 10% chance after that they're going to come to know Jesus subsequent to walking across the stage at graduation. And so sometimes parents will say, man, I just want to go to a church where my teenagers want to go. because the most important thing is that my teenagers enjoy going to church with me and my family. And while that's well-meaning, and as a 20-year youth pastor veteran who thinks that when God takes me to heaven someday, I'm going to be a 1,000-year youth pastor in the millennium. That's my goal, right? So if I haven't done a very good job on this earth, he'll make me be a senior pastor in heaven, all right? So, but I'm just trying to be faithful and let me be a youth pastor again. So as important as this ministry is, it's not the most important thing we do. Moms and daddies, don't choose your church for the youth ministry. We've got a big announcement that I'm able to officially roll out next week about our student ministry. But it's not the most important thing to do. It's not why you choose a church. The children's ministry isn't the most important thing we do. It's not why you choose a church. Our service ministries are not the most important thing we do. It's not why you choose a church. Our missions giving is not the most important things we do. It's not the reason to join a church. So you may be asking then, what? What is the most important thing we do? What is the most important reason to join the church? Now, I'm going to pause from that thought for just a moment, and I want you to think back. And if you can, write down, and you can take out your phones right now, take little notes. If you can think of right now, name 5 Christmas presents you received 5 years ago. All right? You can write that down. Or I tell you what, you can even share that with a neighbor right now, okay? Share with your neighbor 5 Christmas presents you received in 2020. Okay, go. Tell them 5. All right. Okay, question. How many of you easily named 5 presents you received 5 years ago? How many? Nobody? Not one hand went up in the room that I easily remember 5 names. All right, let me ask you this. What is, oh, I got a hand over here. Remember, there's a grateful child. Very good. All right. So what is the most expensive gift you ever gave to someone? Okay, share that with a neighbor. Most expensive gift you ever gave to someone. Okay? My wife is pointing at my daughter. She gave me my little girl, and she is by far the most expensive gift that's ever been given to me. That's not what I meant by the question, but you're worth every penny, Jonna. For me, how many of you remember the most expensive gift you've ever given somebody? Raise your hand on that, okay? A lot more hands go up for that one. I remember for me, the first time I bought, for the first time, a really expensive gift. I was 19 years old, just turned 20, been saving up. I saved 3 months of my salary for this gift. You know what it is, 3 months salary? Is that still a rule of thumb? I saved up for an engagement ring for Dee Bowman. And I can remember going in the jewelry store and getting that little round 1/3 of a carat diamond ring. And it was 3 months salary for me at the time was $600, okay? And so I remember going in there and taking the ring and my hand just shaking like that. One, because of the money I was about to spend, but also because I hoped it was good enough for her. I hoped that she would like it. I knew that as a college student, I didn't have a lot of money. I wasn't going to take a loan from my parents to get my wife a ring. And so I was just hoping. Thank God she said yes a month later at Christmas time. That time, it was the most expensive gift. Now, 30 years went by, and she was coming up on her 50th birthday, which was also her 30-year anniversary. And she always, whenever we would drive, especially when it was snow or up in the mountains, she always said she wanted a Subaru Outback. And so I just made up my mind around 47, 48. I was going to start saving money and pay cash for her to have a new Subaru Outback. And then just a few weeks before she hit the big 5-0, I went to the local Subaru dealer, and I told him, I said, hey, man, listen, I used to sell. I know how the process works. Get all your invoices out for every Subaru you have on the lot. Let's go ahead and agree to a price on every single one of them, because in a couple weeks, I'm going to roll my wife into here, and I'm going to tell her to pick out whichever Subaru she wants on the lot. And I want her to just be able to get in the car and go. And they're like, okay. So we literally, I'm driving her through town. We pull in, Subaru lot there, and I said, okay, get out your car. She says, what, am I getting a car? I said, which one? And I said, which one do you want? And she says, well, I don't know how much they got. I'm like, it doesn't matter. I've already picked out every car out here, whichever one you want. Now, in the back of my mind, I was saying, please, God, don't let her pick the touring edition, because that was like $10,000 more just to have a bigger screen or something and a little better speakers. But my wife, being a good pastor's wife, she took the middle range of the XLT version or whatever, and she picked the color she wanted, the seats she wanted, had heated seats and a steering wheel. She was excited. So she got that, and man, I was in like Flynn from that point on. My wife never gets mad at me anymore. Just that forgave all sins of the past and of the future. Y'all know that's not true, right? So, but here's the thing, like when you're saving up for cars and you're trying to carve out money for the things that you value the most, you've always got competitors. And there's one competitor that I just can't seem to beat, and that's my electric bill. He keeps coming back to the house every month. Does that guy come to your house too? Along with his brother, the water bill. And then this bill comes in, and another bill comes in, and they all start adding up, one after another after another. And sometimes you got to sit down and say, what do we really value? Let's take an account of how we are spending the money that God has entrusted to us. And at some point during the conversation, as we're talking about me eating out or spending money on golf, then I felt it was the Holy Spirit leading me to go where angels fear to tread. And I asked my wife, how much money are you spending on your hair? Okay? Oh, please, husbands, don't clap for that. Whatever. Just tell me it was a girl that did that, not a guy. All right? So then she proceeded, and I even polled some people yesterday just to make sure my wife was telling me the truth. She didn't realize to me, but just to make sure. She said that women actually spend $200 to $250 every 6 to 8 weeks to make sure their hair looks good. And let me tell you what, I say this as your pastor and someone who doesn't want half the congregation to hate me. You women are worth every single penny of that money. Let me tell you what. Like, spend that money on that hair. Look good. I hope God didn't strike me dead for that. So just, now, I'm half joking when I say it, but here's the reality. For a woman, her hair is a big deal, because unfortunately in our society today, the thing that most men value about most women, the number one thing that most men value about most women is how they look. And it's been that from the time that Adam first laid his eyes on Eve. Not saying that's the way it should be, but men are attracted to beauty in women. We see this in the Bible. It's from the Song of Solomon. On a honeymoon, the groom's looking at his new bride and says, behold, you are beautiful, my love. Look, you are beautiful. Your eyes are doves behind your veil. And I can kind of see that, like shaped like a bird, you know, I see that as a compliment. But then he says, your hair is like a flock of goats leaping down the slopes of Gilead. And I guess that's supposed to be a compliment, all right? I will say, like, after we finish the Gospels, how many of you have ever sat through a verse-by-verse teaching of the Song of Solomon? Have you ever, I see a couple hands. I asked Dr. Gregory, he was here this morning, Dr. Mark, have he ever, in his 20 years here, did he ever do it? He said, oh, no, I'm not doing that. We're going to bring out the PG-13 after the Gospels, all right? So we'll either lose a lot of families or more people coming to church than ever before, all right? So it's a difficult book to study, but Paul says, I did not shrink from teaching you the whole counsel of God. So at some point in my life, I have to teach the Song of Solomon if I'm going to teach the whole counsel of God. And I'm pretty sure that that's next, okay? But going back to the hair, here's the deal. Like, there's two things he's looking at He's naming it when he sees his bride there. Her eyes and her hair. In fact, in New Testament times, a woman's hair was considered the most beautiful thing about her. The Bible says if a woman has long hair, Paul wrote to the Corinthians, her hair is her glory. For her hair is given to her for a covering. Like God has blessed her with beautiful hair. This is something that men find attractive. And even, let me tell you what, more than men commenting on other women's hair, you will see women commenting on other women's hair. It's something that is, in biblical times, listen, it was the number one thing about the number one thing that people valued about women. The number one thing they valued about women was their looks, and the number one thing about their looks was their hair. And it's one thing when you're 15 years old, and some of the slightly more mature ladies in the room can tell some of you young girls your hair's doing things right now. You think it's difficult to manage now, wait until you hit your 60s. I've noticed this even as a man. That's why I keep my hair short. It starts shooting everywhere. It's like a Brillo pad. It gets tougher and tougher to manage. And for women trying to keep long hair in their latter years, that's a challenge to do. And this is why Paul is saying, man, it's a glory to a woman to be able to, and the work that goes into a woman having long hair. Culturally, that was true for them. Women were valued for their hair more than anything else. I'm not saying that's the way it should be. I'm saying that's the way the culture viewed it. Now, that's important to understand when we come to John chapter 12. The Bible tells us, this is 4 months after Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus therefore came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. And so they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining with him at the table. And Mary therefore took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard. Now that doesn't sound very attractive or good, but we'll come back. It sounds too much like lard, but that's not what it is. We'll come back to that. But watch this. She anointed the feet of Jesus and wiped his feet with her most valuable asset. The thing she probably spent more time on developing, making sure it was treated well, than anything else that she possessed. She wiped her feet with his hair, and as a result of the ointment and her bathing Jesus' body with it, the house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. Now, a lot of times when we look at this, or how many of you have been at any point in your life to a foot washing service? Raise your hand if you've been to a foot washing service, right? That's a lot of hands in here. A lot of times we do it. And typically if you tell people it's coming, people make sure to cut their toenails before they come to church. They get the pedicure or whatever. Nobody wants to wash a nasty pair of a man's feet. Like, that's kind of a gross thing to do. And I'm just here to share with you this morning that when we do our foot washing here, even if I would take my shoes and socks off today, I know you would think it was gross, but it doesn't even compare to the grossness of what the first century foot washer had to deal with. You see, when we walk into the room with socks and shoes on, our feet are clean underneath. But when you're wearing sandals out on dirt streets, where those streets also share space with the horses and the sheep and the goats and the cows running up and down the streets, the dirt roads, we know what animals leave behind, right? And so during my youth pastor days, and I'll still have kids comment to me about what I did during these days. Parents comment, none of them got mad at me, thank God. We were out by a place that had a farm one time, a barn, and where the horses were, and I had all the kids take off their shoes and go walk through the stuff that the horses left behind in the barn. They walked all throughout the barn. And then we went back to where we were having a worship service, and I pull out the bowl and the towel, and one of the students blasphemed the name of the Lord and said, "Oh my blank," because they realized what was going to happen next. I had them wash each other's feet the way they washed each other's feet in the New Testament. I had them go and get literally all the crap off of each other's feet. Getting all this junk off of people when they came into your house was the job of the lowest servant in the house. There was no nastier, less important, less skilled job other than the person who had to wash people's feet. And not only did Mary wash Jesus' feet and all that nastiness off there, she stuck her most valuable asset in the sewage to proclaim, compared to the love I have for my hair, I'm declaring my love and worship of you, Jesus. If just the hair was the only thing involved in this, her using the hair, her most important asset, and then what it would take afterwards, can you imagine how many times she had to wash her hair to get all the junk out? That act took one thing. The showering's going to take another level of work. But she was willing to do that because that's how much Jesus was worth to her. And that's what worship means. It's just a contracted word for worthships. And that, my friend, is the most important thing that we do here, is to teach you as moms and dads and teenagers and college students how to worship Jesus Christ. The number one reason you should join a church is this is the place where I'm discipled and taught the Word of God, because I cannot properly worship that which I do not know. And so therefore, I'm going to be a part of a community that is committed to living out the truth of Scriptures just as closely to the Word of God as they can. That's our number one mission as a church, is to give Jesus all of the worship and glory that he deserves. Amen? That's why we're here. That's why we're joining. The other things are important, but by far the worship of Jesus is the most important of all. Now I want to talk about what she washed Jesus' feet with. The Bible tells us there's a pint of pure nard. Now it comes from a plant that still grows to this day, the foothills of the Himalayas up near India and China, up on the Himalayan mountains in that area. And it's a long way. Even if you go today, if I would leave here today, and we're getting ready to go, Dee and I are getting ready to do some mission work in the month of January. Even if we left here today to go where they grow this plant, I've been up where they do it before, it's a 36-hour trek just to get on the vehicle to drive 8 more hours to get to where you're going to go. It is hard getting to where this is. And when you get to the plant, you can squeeze a few drops of the sap, okay, of the juice that's in the plant into a little bottle, and it takes hundreds of these plants to come up with this perfume, this nard that they used for burial back in the day. It was a very strong, concentrated perfume that would cover a body when someone died. And this makes me think, I don't even know why Mary and Martha would have had something like this on hand. It makes me think sometimes, because of the tomb nearby their house, perhaps they were in the mortuary business, the burial business. I don't know, that's just speculation. But it's one thing, it would take almost a month of a worker's life to get enough of this plant to come up with a pint of that nard. But to get it back in the first century from northeast India, from the Himalaya mountains, can you imagine? They didn't have Amazon Prime back in the day, okay? The shipping and handling costs to protect this ointment, this perfume that was worth tens of thousands of dollars, to get it from point A to point B there in Jerusalem, the most expensive perfume in the world, you had to pay a pretty penny. Just exactly how much? Well, the Bible tells us. It says, as she's washing Jesus' feet, Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples who he was about to betray him, said, why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor? Now, what exactly is 300 denarii? Well, for the Jews, 365 days a year, you get a Sabbath day off every week. You had 300 working days. So in other words, what he's saying here is, this is worth a year's wage. Now, if someone's making $100 a day, that's making about $30,000 a year. Someone's making $200 a day, it's making about $60,000 a year. So you can see at 300 a day, making close to $100,000 a year. I just want you to put yourself in Mary's position just for a moment. I know this is more difficult for teenagers to do, or maybe even our college students that don't have full-time jobs yet. But I want you to think about the dreaded 1040. I know you're excited to see that this year. Soon you'll be getting your W-2s or your 1099s, whatever you get in January. They got to give you by the end of the month. And it has all your wages and compensation on there. And you get those from your various sources, your spouse or whatever. And just so you guys can know how much fun you get to have when you're in grown-up world, you get to send Uncle Sam a letter every year. And in that letter you send to your dear Uncle Sam, he requests that you list every bit of money that you made in the past year. And so things like just your general wages, you write it out over here. And then your IRA distributions. And then whatever the taxable amount is, you write it over here. Then whatever you got from your pensions and annuities, Uncle Sam wants some of that. And then whatever rental from your real estate, your royalties, your partnerships, your S corporation, your trusts, you need to tell us what you made on that. Whatever you made on your farm, you need to tell us what you made on that. Any unemployment, even if you didn't have a job, you still owe us money. Unemployment compensation, we want some of that. Whatever you got from Social Security that you saved up for all those years, you're going to owe us some of that. And then they give the old dreaded line 21, any other income that you have. In case we didn't catch like D, all the above, that's what this one is. Write it all down. Then it says in line 22, add it all up, and this is your household's total income for the year. Line 22. And we want line 22 to be a big line. It's nice when that's a big line, and you can look at that and say, man, God, thank you for blessing us for what you provided for us in line 22. What we made for the entire year. So let's not miss what Mary did here. She didn't just stick her hair in the sewage. She took every penny that she made that year to buy that ointment. She gave physically, she gave economically to communicate to Jesus, this is what you are worth to me. Now I got a question to ask you. We look at that and we say, wow, that's amazing. What a great woman of faith. But we got to remember, as I'll come back to say at the end, Mary wasn't just worshiping Jesus for who he was. She was worshiping him for what he did 4 months ago, which was what? He gave her brother back. And when you look at that, we're like, man, wasn't that amazing what she did? I don't know how amazing it was, or it would be for us if we had her perspective. What do I mean by that? We got a lot of parents and family members in here. For you guys or college students, if you think about your siblings, and one of them was about to die. For the adults in the room who have children, or you have a niece or a nephew, and you heard that there was a pill out there that would cure their terminal disease. How many of you would be willing to spend whatever you write down in line 22, 50,000, 100,000, whatever that is, How many of you would be willing to spend that $100,000 to save the life of your loved one, to buy that pill of great price? How many of you would be willing to spend line 22? It's not a trick question. I think most of us could easily raise our hand like, well, duh. Not only would I spend line 22, I'd spend last year's line 22. I would take everything I had out of retirement if that's what I had to do. I would take everything that I had in my savings if that's what I had to do to get that pill that would to save my friend's life. That's Mary's perspective. It's not just who Jesus is, it's what Jesus did for her that gave her the ability to do that, not out of guilt, but out of thankfulness. Christ never wants us to worship him out of our guilt for him. Do you get that? He wants us to worship him out of our love for him and out of our thankfulness for what Christ did for us on Mount Calvary. This is why we worship Jesus. Now, when you look at Judas and his motivations, quite different than Mary's. The Bible tells us, guys, if we could help drop that. The Bible tells us that Judas said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he used to pilfer from the purse and take the ministry that was dedicated to the money, to the treasury. So my question to you is, guys, if we could take this backslide out of there, please. My question to you this morning is this: how wicked was Judas? For stealing from the purse dedicated to the work of the Lord, how wicked was he? I mean, what kind of spot do you think Judas has in hell for betraying Jesus like he did and for stealing money from Jesus and the ministry like he did? Now, before you give that answer out loud, I'm going to ask you a question that God asks all of us through the prophet Malachi. God says this: will a man rob God? Yet you are robbing me. But you say, how have we robbed you? And the answer is in your tithes and your contributions. My guess is that many of you, if you would have been rolling in today and someone asked you, hey, have you been robbing God lately? Most of you would say, no, man, I'm not robbing God. Who would do such a thing? That would be evil to rob God. What exactly is he saying when it comes to tithes and contributions? Well, tithes, as we're going to see in a couple of verses, your tithe is what's given to the local place of worship. It's not just given to any ministry or all ministries or to the poor. Gifts to the poor and the needy, that's your contributions. Do you follow that? When I contribute to a needy cause, when I give to the Journey Home, when I give to a parachurch ministry, those are my contributions. But the Bible designates the tithe, 10% of your income, designates the tithe to your local place of worship. Malachi 3:9 says, you are cursed with a curse, for you are robbing me, the whole nation of you. And I think this verse applies to the United States today. And you're like, well, we're still being blessed. Well, in many ways we're not, but let me tell you what, we still think we have stuff, but it's fool's gold. Have any of you seen the national debt tracker as of late? I mean, it was $34 million when we came in the room. The interest will probably drive it to $35 million by the time we leave today. And listen, someday those chickens are going to come home to roost. All of us are on the hook in this room for about $100,000 for the debt our government has run up on us. Do you understand that? Someday that debt's going to have to be paid. And the curse is on its way toward the United States. Why so? Listen, I am not even talking about people who don't go to church. I'm talking about when we see the polls across the nations and ask people, are you a member of a local congregation? And then those people are asked, how much do you contribute to your local church? Do you know what the average is of Christians? 2%. 2%. So many things. The most prosperous nation the world has ever known. And our followers of Christ are giving 2% to their local storehouse. This is what he says. God commands. And this is the good news about Jesus. He's always giving you a chance to fix what you've done wrong. He's always giving you a chance, no matter what you've done. Even Cain, when he was about ready to go kill Abel, he said, you better be careful now. God is always giving his word as an act of mercy. Telling us like, I still love you, I'll forgive you, I will keep the curse from coming upon you if you'll just do what I'm asking you to do. He says, bring the full tithe into the storehouse. What was the storehouse then? That was the local place of worship. That was where the priests were fed out of those things. That's how they performed the services at the church. That's how they took care of some of the poor in the community. That went in the local storehouse. And then your contribution, or they would sometimes call those alms. You've probably heard of alms before. That was given to other charitable contributions, other charitable organizations, like the Boys and Girls Club or the Boy Scouts, or give it to the local band or something like that. Those are the contributions. Sometimes people say, well, can I take my tithe? The Bible says, it says, bring the full 10% into the storehouse. Why? That there may be food in my house, and therefore, thereby put me to the test. It's one of the few places where God says, test me on this. See if I will not open the windows of heaven for you and pour down for you a blessing until there is no more need in your house. And what the devil is always trying to do to keep us from attributing to Jesus the worth he deserves is to make us think that we need things that we really don't need. I don't need YouTube TV. I like watching sports, but I don't need that. I don't need a 3,000 square foot house. I don't need a car that I could trade in today for $25,000. I don't need those things. I want those things, but I don't need them. And there's so many things living here in Murfreesboro, in the prosperous area in which we are, that we compare ourselves with what everybody else has. These people who aren't tithing, these people who aren't giving alms, these people who are living on 99% of their paycheck and really in debt for far more than what they actually have, we compare ourselves with them and somehow convince ourselves, I need what everybody else needs. And Jesus said, man, I promise you I will give you what you need. And I will even say this, and it's not hard for me to say this. It's not judgmental. It's just a fact. I've seen people who live in sheds give more than a tithe to their local church. I've seen people who have no running water in their homes. They still tithe. I see people who don't have vehicles tithe. I see people who struggle with having health care for their family, and they still tithe. Why? Because they say Jesus is worth more to me. The ministry of the people of God is worth more to me than even my own physical health. And so I say that like none of you in this room are making those kind of choices. So when I hear someone say, well, they're a young family just starting out, listen, I know how the other 90% of the world lives. You follow that? And if they can tithe, that the people living in this area were expected to tithe, how much more so as Americans, the most prosperous people we've ever known, how much more so should we give not only a tithe, but contributions as well? And then God gives you this promise if you do. He says, if you do this, I will rebuke the devourer for you so that it will not destroy the fruits of your soil, and your vine in the field shall not fail to bear, says the Lord of hosts. What he's saying is that curse that's heading your way to take things away from you that you think you need, and maybe even take some things from you that you do need. God says, I will stand in and block that if you'll just start being faithful today. Do you realize how merciful that is of God? You've heard the expression before, right? The best time to plant a cherry tree is 20 years before you need it. But the second best time to plant a cherry tree is when? Today. And that's why I'm just saying to you, friends, as we head into 2025, in 2024, today, this is when you sit down as a family. This is when you sit down we even did this with our kids. We told them this is how much we make, therefore this is the minimum that we're going to give. And they saw us openly give not only tithes but contributions. Whatever's in line 22, the math couldn't be any easier. Just move that decimal over one spot. And this is what we're going to give to the local work of the Lord through the storehouse. And so when we think about Mary and her giving to Jesus, her physical hair, also her economics to him, and they're complaining to her, you got to stop, don't do this. Jesus says to her, leave her alone, so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. For the poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. For the payment you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. For the electric bill you will always have with you, but you won't always have me. Over and over, Jesus says this to everyone who would say to a spouse or a family member, we don't need to tithe. We don't need to give extravagantly. Jesus would say this to you, husband, whose wife is saying to you, we need to tithe, but you're saying, nah, I need to eat out more. Nah, I need to golf more. Nah, I got to have that $65,000 truck. Nah, before you say nah, before you tell your wife not to make that deposit, Jesus would say to you, leave her alone. Let her be obedient to the word of God, even if you're not willing to do so. For whatever it is that you're chasing after in life, you'll always have that with you. But you may not always have him. I want to show you a video now. It's absolutely incredible. This happened last Christmas season in Times Square. At Times Square, you've probably seen it where the ball drops before. You've got 27 screens, TV advertisements, used to promote all sorts of sewage day after day after day. But someone decided to put their hair in the sewage and make sure the world knew what Christmas was all about. Let's watch this together, please. As I watched that, as I was preparing this sermon, I just saw it this week as I was preparing this sermon, I just thought, man, that is somebody sticking line 22, sticking their hair in the sewage, because that's what Jesus is worth. And the whole room, all of Times Square, got to experience the fragrance that filled it. Now, when you watch that, I mean, first of all, you're probably thinking, man, that was awesome. And then if you're like me, the second question you ask, how much did that cost? And I remember when I was reading in they post online and they give comments or whatever, and they give the AI summary or whatever. And part of the summary, this is what it says. Many people comment as to much how beautiful the expression was and how they loved that someone did this. But many also said, wouldn't that money have been better spent on feeding the poor? And my friends, I just want you to understand, that's how the world looks at us worshiping Jesus. They think the most important thing we do is mission work. They think the most important thing we do is for the kids. But in reality, we exist to develop authentic followers of Christ, who develop authentic followers of Christ, who worship him in spirit and truth. That's why we exist. And it's easy for other people to look at OPM. You know what OPM? Other people's money. We always judge how people spend OPM. It's like the story in the Ivy League. There were some students at Harvard and Columbia who were protesting. They're always protesting at Columbia something. They were protesting. They were like, we need to let more youth, teens, students from underprivileged nations to come to our Ivy League schools. And the heads of departments, the school, they communicated back to the kids. Like, our dorms are already full. And the students, like, they keep protesting. We got to do something. We got to let more kids come into the school and get a proper education so they can get a hand up. So the leaders of the school called both kids from both campuses together, the leaders of the student groups, and they said, we found a solution how to open up rooms in the dorm for these underprivileged students. And they were like, yeah, how are we going to do it? They said, we just need you to give up your spot at this school so other people can take your spot and get their Ivy League education. Now, how many of you are willing to leave the school? Oh, not one student volunteered their spot. It's always easy to say, man, I hope the affluent, man, that was a great message today for families to make 6 figures a year. Always judging other people's money. This is what Jesus says about Mary and what she gave to him today, that day. She has done what she could. That's all God's asking of any of you in this room. Do you follow what I'm saying? He's not asking, if you're a college student and you're making $1,500 a year, he's not expecting you to give $1,000 a month to the church. Some of you, like, you're out of a job right now. This is all Jesus expects out of us. It's just to do what we can. And in this case, he said, leave Mary alone. She's doing what she can. Just do what you can. I'm not here to put guilt on you or lay some kind of shame upon you. I'm not doing that today. But what she's doing here is anointing Jesus' body beforehand for burial. Which again, I'm thinking this is why maybe they were in the burial business. And then Jesus makes this remarkable statement. He says, and truly I say to you, in Mark 14:9, wherever the gospel is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in memory of her. Now, when we think about all the things that are in the Bible and all the gifts and offerings that were offered to Jesus, when we review all 4 Gospels, we see very few things that are in all 4 of them. As far as miracles go, only the feeding of the 5,000 and Jesus' resurrection to dead, those are the only miracles mentioned in all 4 Gospels. Of the events that take place in the Gospels, people doing things for Jesus, only one thing is mentioned all 4 times. And it's not a man that did it. It's like John when he's writing this later, man, Jesus said this story has to be told. This is the story that has to be told. Why? Because this is at the heart of a heart that has been converted and understands the worth and worthiness and the worship Jesus deserves. And it's this idea of line 22. Doing what you can means, for some, sliding the decimal over 1 point. But I want to close this sermon with a different thought. Many of you are doing just about all that you can. And to which I say thank you. And I'm not saying what I'm saying today because the church needs more money. Like financially, we are doing really well right now, and God is really blessing many of the members of our congregation. Like our budget is good. We don't need more money for us right now. So I just want you to understand that. I'm asking you to give as the word commands you to do for your good, for your blessing, for your protection from the curses that could be headed your way. But for another group in our church who could be doing more, I want to refer to D-Day. There was a saying that went, while all our nation was working together in World War II, many working in factories, many preparing ammunition, some building tanks, some were behind the scenes, some were on the front lines. And some of those who were on the front lines, especially on D-Day, who took the shores of Normandy so that we could restore freedom to Europe, the saying went, all gave some, but some gave all. Billy Ray Cyrus made a country song about it a few years ago. All of you need to be giving some. But some of you, I want to address for the next 3 minutes, can give all. What do you mean, Steve, all? In just a couple weeks, Dee and I are going to be spending pretty much a month doing mission work, traveling. We're going to be in this area. This is where kids play with their balls, little girls play with their dolls, and it's open sewage running right down through the middle. We partner with an organization there that goes in and rescues kids out of these slums, many of which will be trafficked or join in gangs, and we get them room and board and an education in a school so these little boys won't be gang members someday, but many of them will become pastors someday. But in order for us to be able to do that, we need people who can write all of line 22 to the work of the Lord this way. And some of you can do it and not miss out on a thing that you need. Are you willing to stick your hair in the sewage? To actually give to the point that you miss it. We're also visiting a place in Southeast Asia where girls are trafficked and they run brothels. The average girls in these brothels are 13, 14 years old, some as young as 10. But the local police, even though you know this is where the girls are housed, they won't go in and bust it up unless they know the girls can be taken care of. Because as bad as this situation is, the police don't need a major problem of homelessness on the street. Do you follow that? So to just go up and break up the brothel, then the girls are just back out on the streets the next day, what's going to happen again? Do you see? And so if they're going to bust up one of these, they've also got to see that the organization we work with, AIM, has the funds necessary to take care of these girls, to give them room and board and an education until time which they are adults and have the skills necessary to have a job so they don't end up back on the streets. It takes about $25,000 to $30,000 to provide for girls in a brothel. And for some of you, that would only be a small part of your line 22. But you literally, this spring, could rescue a bunch of girls like this. All you got to do is tell me, and I'll make sure it gets to the right place. All you got to do is tell me, and I'll make sure it gets to where it needs to be in Africa. And then last, I want to share this with you, just very quickly. When I entered seminary in 1992, the average age of guys in ministry was 44 years. Half of us were under 44, half were over 44. In 2022, the average age of ministers in the United States is 57 years old. What does that tell us? There aren't enough young guys and girls going into ministry. You see this number, 464,568, that's how many ministers take the housing allowance in the United States. That's how many pastors we have now. But through very specific sociological polls that I believe are accurate, these pastors were asked, and because of the aging out, 1/4, 25%, which is around 116,000 of these 464,000 are going to retire by the end of 3030. And if we took every single student that we had at seminary now preparing to teach from a pulpit someday, that would only give us 39,000 pastors for 116,000 openings within the next 5 years. Churches are going to be closing down like crazy because, as the prophet Amos says, there will be a famine for the word of God in the land. And because of the college ministry that our denomination has seen, our growth pattern here, the way we're discipling leaders. We've recently been asked to consider where Murfreesboro is at the geographic center of the state of Tennessee, and with all the growth especially taking place in Middle Tennessee, would we consider being a hub for a seminary to train men and women to go out in the full-time gospel ministry right here at one church in Murfreesboro, Tennessee? There's not a major seminary within 200 miles of us. What would it look like? This is what they're figuring out now, for us to partner with Motlow or MTSU, where they get 2 years of their general ed classes, and then we work with them to get them the Bible college or seminary level training they need to do gospel ministry. And you know what the number one roadblock's going to be for us getting church planners for Rutherford County and for running this? There's just one small thing. It's a bunch of line 22s. If God has put any of these things on your hearts, I just encourage you to come to me and say, you know what, Steve? God has given me and my family the ability to wash our hair on Jesus' feet. As we close today, let's remember that Mary didn't worship Jesus just because of who he was. She also worshiped him because of what he has done. And my question to you is, what is that worth? It's because a lot of times when we leave church, we'll make comments to the effect, man, the worship was good today. But when we say that, what we really mean is the music was really good today. The singers were on point today. But worship does not equal music, and good music does not equal worship. The point of the singers, the point of the lyrics on the screen, is that when we sing the words that are up there, it is our way of proclaiming to God and one another not only how great God is, but the great things he has done. So every week when we stand to sing, when you come in here, to a small point, you are proclaiming with the lyrics on the screen and your church family, this is what Jesus means to me. Let me declare, this is what Jesus has done for me. This is what Jesus will do for you. This is what Jesus has done for my family. He has met all my needs, and I can't help but to let that out. And that's not only expressed in the way we sing, it's expressed through our serve one. It's expressed through the way we connect and love one another. And it's also expressed in the way that we give. God calls on all of us to give some. My question is, are there some today who are willing to give all?